It's Thompson to Clark, episode number 200. Can you think about that for a second?
That's crazy.
100. And, we're basically doing this every week. To get to 200, that is a very lengthy, um, that is us going like, you know what, we're just going to keep doing this for a long time. Like, I think that I always bring this up, which is, so I read a stat one time. I don't know how true this is anymore, but the stat was like, not many podcasts actually go past like 10 or 20 episodes.
Really? That's low. Jeez.
Because you do it, you don't see the engagement, and then you go, okay, why am I doing this? And for us, we were doing it because we were, I don't know, we were kind of bored. Like, we were trying pandemic. We're like, hey, like, let's do something. And I'd been kind of needling you for a little bit to do it. And, and I was like, I'm just going to send you this microphone. Like, just, you're going to get it and you're going to plug it in. And then
This very one right here, I haven't changed it. It's the same exact microphone from day one, too.
And like, the thing about it for me was like, all he has to do is speak into the microphone again. And he's just going to get hooked, because that is how I knew you. You were someone who spoke into the microphone in college. And I was like, that it's still there. I can tell it's still there. He just needs to get that microphone again.
I keep thinking about it. So I'm nearing retirement, not nearing. I mean, 6.5 years, but that's close enough, right?
Yeah.
I keep thinking, in 6.5 years, is there any way I can do some sort of music show from my house?
That would be cool.
Because I remember there used to be a God, what was it? Probably like 15 years ago, there was a streaming service where you could create music shows from your house with a microphone, play the tunes, and then send it to them, and it was all covered under ASCAP, BMI, all of that stuff. And I thought, in 6.5 years, that's what I want to do. I think I want to get back into that.
That would be awesome. There's gotta be a way. Like, obviously the licensing and stuff, but I mean, I know one of my buddies, he does a radio show, or he did one that was all music. He was just I think he was actually I don't think he was actually spinning, but he was like mixing for sure. He was mixing songs in. And when he was in the studio, he was using a vinyl player. But I think when he was home during the pandemic, he was probably just using his computer.
Yeah.
But it was for a radio show called Radio Brooklyn, because he lives out in New York. And so he was doing it. Like, he did like years and years and years of episodes. So the ability is there.
Yeah.
But it might be like, I don't know. Maybe you'll have to go to like, we'll have to go back to college or something and get it back into college radio.
Up at UNR here in Reno, they do have a college. They have KUNR. They have a college radio station that plays. It's I think it's NPR during the week, but on the weekends it's music. They have a lot of music shows. If not, you and I are just going to do a classic hip hop show.
Yeah, that would be fun. I've thought about that too.
Yeah,
I've definitely thought about that, like trying to figure out, you know what? I mean, you could essentially do it as a podcast, I'm sure, and it would just be about the monetization aspect of it, I think. Like, I wonder if there's a way to just do it for free. Just like, we don't care about making money with this. We just want to play the songs.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way.
Play the songs we want to play, talk about them, stuff like that. So, yeah.
All right. So we just recorded a post-game show for Giants and Diamondbacks, the first game in Arizona. Giants dropped 4-2. Randy Rodriguez gave up a 2-run bomb in the bottom of the ninth to Pavin Smith. So, of course, especially after Sunday, the Giants had to lose in heartbreak fashion again. And we talk about the pain that we went through watching both those games. But before we actually send it off to that segment that we did for Bleacher Report, I did want to ask you about this weekend because last week I said, or 2 weeks ago, when the Giants were in Pittsburgh and then they were in New York, I said, they really got to take care of business on the road because when they come home, two of the best teams in baseball are going to be waiting for them. And they took 2 out of 3 from Philadelphia. So that was surprising and maybe gave us a little bit of false hope in a sense. But then New York came to town and 2 of those games weren't that competitive. I didn't feel like we were at all with the Yankees in those first 2 games, but on Sunday's game, they played good baseball and they took a lead going into the 9th inning, and then Doval could not save that game. It was kind of ridiculous the way that they gave it up. Just shots in the right center gap all game long before the home run. And then it's just one of those games where you're just like, gosh, this sucks. Losing like this sucks. Losing baseball games is bad. But when you lose a game like that, it almost feels like you lost like 2 games because it was there for the win. So you take away the win and then you add a loss. And what was your main takeaway from losing to the Yankees in the way that they did? Did it take away from the goodness that we saw in Philadelphia and on the road trip where they played well? Like, did those 3 games go, okay, reset, they're not who we thought they were, or did they just run into a juggernaut?
Yeah, and that you and I talked about that over this weekend, and we disagree a little bit on what we feel like we saw. I mean, but that's what we do as fans. We don't
I
always
was also
see
very
this.
sad, so I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
remember
But
what I
no, but
wrote,
we
but
don't see
I
the
was
same thing all the
depressed.
time.
Yeah.
Just because we've done 200 shows doesn't mean we sit here and agree with each other all the time. But we were talking about. I just think that they ran into a juggernaut. They ran into the best team in baseball at the peak of their best teamiest. How about that? How about that for a quote? Yeah, I think the Yankees are just absolutely, and Aaron Judge, white hot right now. And that's
Yep.
exactly what the Giants ran into. And that's what caused a lot of what happened in the 9th inning to Camilo Doval. You have a team who's extremely confident and they feel like they can hit the ball out of the ballpark, any ballpark, doesn't matter if it's Oracle, doesn't matter where it's at. If you put them at a ballpark like Oracle and tell them, you guys can't get hit home runs. Your people don't hit home runs. Well, what do? They hit a ton of home runs over the weekend. So, I mean, that's just the team that they are right now. Look, the Dodgers are good, but they're having their problems. Bottom half of their lineup is It's not a great bottom half of the lineup. Dodgers pitching is okay. The Yankees are just pitching fantastic. Great bullpen right now. Up and down their line. Gleyber Torres is batting 8th. And that guy is like normally a 270, 280 hitter who can hit 25 to 30 home runs and steal you 20 bags. I mean, and that's your number 8 hitter. Yeah, he's not off to a great start, but it doesn't have to be when you've got Stanton and Soto and Judge. So that's why I really had high hopes for tonight's game, the first game of the series in Arizona. I really thought, hey, let's go out and play like we have been over the past couple of weeks and kind of get things back on the right course again. And it just didn't happen, man. But there's still 2 games left in the series. You win 2 games of a 3-game series, you win the series. It's always more fun to win that last game of the series too, right? To go away rather than win the first 2, which the Giants are very good at doing, and then losing the 3rd game, and then you don't really feel like you won the series. So they lost the first game. Giants can win the next 2. Prove to everybody, prove to themselves that, hey, look, we're back on track. We're doing our thing. But I tell you, that Yankees team, I mean, we got super unlucky with the timing of that because the Yankees were not playing great baseball about, 3 or 4 weeks ago. They've been a top team all season long, but they were not playing like this like 3 weeks ago.
My hope is that they turn it around. And again, you're turning it around on the road in Arizona. Arizona, very similar team to the Giants as far as kind of, the disappointment. You hope that they would play better. But then you go into Texas, and the Texas Rangers, I would say, their fan base probably believes they've been a little bit disappointing. They're 29-31 as of this recording. Giants are 29-32. So if you can go 500 on this road trip, or even let's go 4-2, we're being a little open-eyed here. Then you come home and you have the Astros, who are an absolute disappointment this year. And then you have the Angels, who are the second worst team in the American League, even worse than the Oakland A's. That doesn't mean the Giants are going to win every game, but what I'm saying is that you're coming home and you're not playing the Phillies and the Yankees. So there could be some light at the end of the tunnel, just schedule-wise. You're facing two teams who are a little bit under 500 like you, and then you go home and you're playing two teams who are a lot under 500, who you are better than statistically and schedule-wise and standings-wise. So my hope is that, by the time we get to next week, they're playing decently so that they can win the majority of those games. And then you get into mid-June, and a couple weeks after that, a month after that, then Brad Evans comes to town, and you got to play your best baseball
right, man.
of the season. Because when is the last time that you've been at that park?
2006, June 2006. So it's been a little while.
Yeah.
I just went to an Aces game the other night here in Reno, and they won. It seems like anytime I go to the Aces games, they win. So I'm going to Oracle. I expect 2 victories. It's going to be fun walking in that park because, I've been to so many AAA games and AA games, or not AA, but single A games, and, over the years. And then anytime you walk into a major league ballpark, it's an experience. It's a cathedral. I mean, you walk in, you go, wow, this is enormous and fantastic. We're going to play the Blue Jays. Is that the time? Now, this is second week of July-ish.
Yeah.
Is that the time we make the Bo Bichette and Vladdy Jr. deal? Because the GMs are going to be face to face, right?
Yeah.
So is it possible that before the first game of that series, all of a sudden you and I are at these games and Vladdy Jr. is playing first base in a Giants jersey?
He hit a bomb today. Nice one, too.
Yeah, and they put him at third base the other day. Don't tell me they're not showcasing him. Remember, he can also play third.
It'll be fun when you do come to town in a month or in about 5 weeks, because we'll have the full BSPN squad there.
That's
Brian
right.
will be there. Roderick Adams from We Want Winners will be there. So the entire BSPN crew will be there, and we'll take a picture, and maybe we'll do figure out how to do some fun stuff. But that's gonna be a blast. That is 5 weeks away. I wanted to kind of just do that little fun thing with you, but 200 episodes. I don't imagine we're slowing down anytime soon. This has kind of become our weekly check-in and something that we both look forward to. So hopefully, we'll get to 300. Not to put any pressure on anybody, because life can change and things can happen.
Oh, sure.
But,
if we're gonna do another 200, I just ask one thing, and that's to have more playoff games, because we've done 200 and we've only had 5 playoff games.
Yes.
So that needs to get fixed going forward. Is that going to be Farhan's job, or is that going to be somebody else's job to take care of in the next 200 games? We'll find out.
I don't know,
200 episodes.
There were a lot of Yankees fans in that ballpark, though. I kind of expected that, because the Yankees aren't here very often. But there's lots of cheering when they were making their comeback.
There are a few teams that are universal to the world. It's the Yankees, it's the Dodgers, it's the Red Sox, and the Cubs. I mean, those are I wouldn't even say the Dodgers are necessarily universal to the world, but the Cubs, the Red Sox, and the Yankees, that is your universal to the world team. So anytime that team plays somewhere, you're gonna have a crowd. I remember going, 1989, 88, 87, 90, 91, going to Oakland A's games at the Coliseum. Anytime the Red Sox were in town, because I'd go see my guy, Dwight Evans. There were so many Red Sox fans in the crowd. And this is the height of the A's, little run that they had of 3 consecutive years going to the World Series, but only winning the one time. Let's just remind everybody. But, but I mean, that's still during that height, if the Yankees were in town, Don Mattingly, I mean, you saw Mattingly jerseys everywhere, and it was crazy,
Yep. All right. I think we're going to send it off to our segment that we did, which was essentially a post-game show on the Giants and the Diamondbacks. I think we have one more of those next Monday, and then we have a trade deadline show followed by another Monday night post-game show. That's going to be the schedule for all of June. And then, and then we'll figure it out from there. So, all right, for Brad, I'm Double G. We're going to send it off to our segment. Happy 200th episode, and we will be here for more. All right, we are live here. Post-game reaction show. The Giants were just in Arizona tonight in the first game of a 3-game series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. And Brad, do you think the Giants lead all of baseball, the history of baseball, in most possible heart attacks and depression and sadness given to their fan base?
Always, man. We've been fans for how long? 70s, late 70s, early 80s. So
yeah.
we've seen it all. We've been through it all. But man, you just never get used to games like this. You get a game where, I mean, the Giants don't have to come back huge tonight. They're just down 2-0. Just kind of sneak back in, and then and then you get this grand hope in the top of the ninth that, hey, we're gonna put one across the board, maybe even 2.
Yeah,
and then Soler's up, so maybe even 3. It's possible we get a 3-run bomb. He's been hitting the ball better lately, but then he swings at the first pitch and just lazy fly ball to center field. I mean, anybody else swings at that pitch and it's probably a pop out to shortstop, but he hit it, to a fairly decent part of center field.
Yes.
But yeah. And then the bottom of the ninth is just brutal. It's what we do, man.
It's hilarious. And I don't even know if non-Giants fans know this, but even when they won the World Series, and we keep calling back to this World Series as if it was yesterday. It's now like 14 years since that World Series. But the theme of that season was Giants baseball, torture. And they won the World Series in that season. The torture has not gone away. The World Series have come and gone. But the idea that they had a chance, especially after last night. We'll talk a little bit about yesterday because I think it kind of, the whole series against the Yankees is relevant to what we're going to talk about. Losing today, I guess the score was 4-2. Giants were down 2-0 for most of the game, then 2-1, then they tied it, and then they lose on a 2-run pinch hit home run by Pavin Smith. And right before that home run happens, I was about to send you a text to say, should we just call him Dirty Rodriguez? Or Dirty Randy? Either one of those works. Randy Rodriguez strikes out Gurriel Jr. with a nasty pitch, and then it's a little McCarthy hits a little dunk shot over the third baseman's head, gets a double, and then the home run was legit. It was a blast. But but so
any ballpark, I think that's out of any ballpark, because what is it, 415, 416 to dead center in Arizona, and you got the overhang too, and so it hit the overhang.
Yeah,
such a weird ballpark. You've been there a few times. I haven't been.
Yeah, it's nice, but it's not. Because it's not a real true outdoor ballpark, because you don't want one of those in Arizona.
No,
it feels a little differently. It feels like you're just hanging out in air conditioning, just in an indoor ballpark. But they can't
Yeah.
open the roof. But I'm happy though because it's really nice in there.
Yeah.
I guess the only park that's not hit out of is Yellowstone, because it was
Yeah.
quite the blast.
pretty,
Okay, so
pretty much it.
I just aged our show about
Yeah.
35
Yeah, you
years.
did.
But okay, so talking about this idea of and this is baseball. I'm sure every team, every fan of every team has the story, which is the team goes through a rough stretch after some hope, beating Philadelphia 2 out of 3 at home. That gave the fans some hope, like, oh, maybe this team is a lot better than what we think, which is we just think that they're, 81 and 81 and, move that 2 or 3 games to the right and they're in the playoff hunt, and move that 2 or 3 games to the left and they are last year's team. But after you beat Philly and the Yankees come into town and you can salvage a series of not being swept in your own ballpark, and then Camilo Doval gives it away in the 9th inning, you kind of come out of that series just in despair and sadness and depression. And so you come into this series with you come into this series with the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are similarly a little frustrating, right? A little frustrating. The fan base, I believe, you go to the World Series, and this year you're kind of just playing 500. Let me refresh my screen here. Hang on. You you kind of come into this series and you go, okay, let's reset here. Hopefully we can come into Arizona and we can play a lot better. And then the Giants give you a little bit of hope. And it's the whole thing with Lucy and Charlie Brown and the football all over again. You're like, oh, 2. Elliot Ramos in the 7th hits that jack to tie the game. And in the 9th inning, we have a runner on Elliot Ramos gets a hit. Matt Chapman takes a long turn at third, and you're like, oh man, is Matt Williams going to test him? No. We're playing it safe here. Let's bring up Soler. Soler's brought in. Soler's paid to drive guys in, though it has been his kryptonite this year. And he hits a chopper to third baseman. As he hits this chopper, I'm screaming at the television, throw this ball away. And that's what you would do. Like you and I, if we're playing, if we're playing city ball or something, you're just screaming, throw the thing away, throw the ball away. And he does. The third baseman, who is Suarez, throws the ball away. Christian Walker jumps, leaps, catches it, makes a tag at the same time. Great play. And the umpires call Soler safe. So we're like, oh, 3-2. They reeled us back in. And we're going to actually be ahead in the 9th inning. The San Francisco Giants app sent a notification out that says the Giants take a 3-2 lead. So that one back.
They were ready to go, man. They were ready to end this thing.
They go to the replay, and then they do call Soler out. I couldn't tell on the live. It looked so bang that I thought they were going to keep it. But then when they slowed it down, I was like, I don't know if we're going to get this one.
Yeah.
And
one thing they didn't do on the TV replay for us was freeze it the second Walker's glove hit Soler's helmet. Because if you would freeze it there, yeah, absolutely. I think he got him. I think Soler's foot was still hovering over the bag at that point. It was, again, it's one of those bang plays. It's one of those close plays. I feel like all season long, if it's close like that, we don't get the benefit of the doubt. And that's just, that's just me crying, because I know if you looked around the league, it's probably even. It's probably like 51 to 49% all across the league.
Yeah.
For teams. But still, it was one of those frustrating situations. But then I thought, you know what? Soler needs to get a hit in that situation, put one in the gap, pop one off of the fence, do something, do something to get that run home.
The at bat right before that, he did go to right field.
Yeah.
Looked good. His at bats have been looking a little bit better.
Went to right field yesterday. And I wanted to see, because, as Giants fans, we wanted to see Doval. He was warming up. We wanted to see him come out and get right after yesterday. So that would have been a big pick me up, I think, for everybody. And I mean, it's June, right? June 3rd. We don't say very often, like in June, like this is a must-win game. But after yesterday, after that series, then you go down south to face your rivals, who you're right neck and neck with in the standings, and you're like, man, we got to take this game one. We got to go out. We got to come in hitting, score some runs. And then Ryan Nelson with his 6.02 ERA mows down the Giants. Don't get a hit till the fourth inning. I'm thinking, this is the most I'm going to take the words out of your mouth. This is the most Giantsy start to a baseball game that we'd seen.
So. What I was thinking for Ryan Nelson, and I was actually thinking about Diamondbacks fans in this. We have a Diamondbacks fan who watches our show from time to time. And he talks about kind of the injuries and the frustration that they've had. And my thought was, oh man, Ryan Nelson is getting Matt Cain, which is also getting Logan Webbed. And, he's pitching really well. Giants are swinging very early in the count. The game, I looked at the timeline on my television. And so the way that we watched this game, you watched it live. I kind of watched it live. Then I let it go for a couple of innings, and then I came back to catch up to live. I don't know what the time on the game was, but when I think by the bottom of the eighth or something, it was like 2 hours and like 10 minutes or something like that. It was a very fast game.
It was a 2 hour and 12-minute ball game.
Okay, I thought we were even better.
I even thought, actually, I thought it was close to getting under the 2 hour mark. I thought, are we going to have a sub 2 hour ball game on June 3rd in Arizona? Because Arizona it's a hitter's ballpark. It's warm weather. I know they got the air conditioning going and everything, but when you think about that ballpark, it is so big in the gaps that it kind of plays a little bit like Colorado without as many home runs. But you can hit one in the gap, you can hit one over somebody's head, and you can run a while.
Suarez did that early in the game.
It did. If you can get runners on, man, you can hit one in the gap and you can clear the bases. And that was a frustrating thing because, the Giants, we don't get runners on lately. We went through a nice streak there where we were scoring, 5 runs, 6 runs, 10 runs, 7 runs. But, against the Yankees, just, again, scuffling. We did put some runs on the board against the Yankees, but it wasn't that jump out to a lead.
What's the common denominator for that? It's got to be late night getting hurt, right?
It absolutely has to be, because when the Giants were going really well, Lamont Wade Jr. seemed to be in the middle of, or at the beginning of, any kind of rally. He would come up, he would get on base, he would take some pitches, maybe have a 7-pitch at bat, end up on first base, and all of a sudden you've got a little rally going, because now you've got the pitcher working, especially if it's a pitcher who's already, thrown a couple of innings, and now he's got late night Lamont, as the leadoff hitter in the 6th inning, 7th inning, and all of a sudden he's got to throw 7 or 8 pitches to him, and now you go to the bullpen, or he keeps pitching, and then the Giants rally up and score 2-3 runs, and that was during the hot streak. That's how things went. So yeah, you're right. I mean, Trenton Brooks, he's a good player. I'm sure he's a great AAA player, but he's not the same at first base. He doesn't. I think he has he gotten his first?
He had a home run the other day, I think.
Did he really? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think in one of the Yankees games he hit a home run.
Okay. So, I mean, he's kind of, off the schneid a little bit, but he's not, he is not a rally guy like Lamont Wade Jr. So, the Giants are going to be hurting without him another couple of weeks, another 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks possibly. Yeah, it was a tough one. I mean, that's a tough one. You start a road trip like that and you lose in the bottom of the ninth to, one of your National League West rivals, and it's just not a good feeling to get things going.
And this is not to give the Diamondbacks really any benefit of the doubt here, but they are scuffling as well, and I think we both believe that they're going to figure it out and they're going to be competitive, which is kind of how they did it last year. And so this is a great opportunity to take advantage of the scuffling, but then right as it seems like the Mets are just going to handle them, then they win 2 in a row, and I forget who. It was weird. We watched the NBC Sports Bay Area version of the game because we get Kruk and Kipe, and we've been listening to Kruk and Kipe for 20 some odd years now. The FS1, it was a national game on FS1, and Chris Myers and Dontrell Willis were the pregame show. And so they were kind of talking about some of the scuffling that the Diamondbacks were dealing with, and they said that they had only won 3 games in a row, like maybe once all season long, or maybe none. Maybe this was the first one all season long. So scuffling, kind of like the Giants. And I just thought, this is the perfect time to go into Arizona and take some games here because they're not doing very well either. And at some point, they're going to start doing really well because they have so much talent. And you just watch those guys and you're just like, this looks like a carbon copy of what we see every day. I imagine Diamondbacks fans and Giants fans are probably feeling similarly about this season, but really, guys who should be hitting, who aren't hitting. Corbin Carroll's hitting under 200. He sort of got lucky because I think it was Sean Jelly hit him right in the upper chest to get on base, or else, he just looked like he was waving at pitches like he had a sword instead of a bat. But he's going to get right. I mean, I can't say that we know that for a fact. It is only his real second year, but he's got so much talent that you just think that he's going to figure it out. But yeah, this was an opportunity, man. Look, why don't we go through the scoring just so folks know, if they didn't watch the game, how the scoring happened. So both teams, they came out of the gate much differently because, like we talked about, Ryan Nelson started for the Diamondbacks. And he pitched very well. He pitched like a starter going into the 8th inning. And the Giants on the flip side, because of just the way that they've handled the pitching staff and really only having, 3.5 starters so far this season, they threw a bullpen game. So Eric Miller starts the game, gave up 2 hits in the first, but gets out of it. And they brought in Spencer Howard, who is kind of their long man right now for these openers. He's pitching the bulk of the innings in the games in which they have these openers. And right in the first inning that he throws, which is the bottom of the second, Gurriel Jr. hits a hanging slider over the fence. They score. That's 1-0. And then Alexander drives in a run with a base hit up the middle. And so right when Howard comes in, it's 2-0 Diamondbacks. And I'm just thinking like, oh, man, these bullpen games, the whole reason to throw these bullpen games, or, back when Toronto or Tampa was doing it for like strategy and like leverage moves, it's like, oh yeah, you throw your reliever, he comes out just throwing as hard as humanly possible. And then you bring in your longer guy and that guy's able to attack the bottom half of the order. Like, so, there's a strategy there, and Howard comes in and they immediately score 2 runs. So I'm just like, that strategy backfired. But in this case, for the Giants, it's kind of a necessity. It's not even a real strategy. So in the top of the 4th, like you mentioned, Giants hadn't had a hit. Brett Wisely, who's been really hitting the ball well, he seems to be on just about every fastball that is thrown his way. He rips a single, and then he scores on a Matt Chapman double. That kind of what you were talking about earlier, the way that those gaps work on this field, he was able just to kind of get it right in the middle, and the big gap, he was able to get Wisely all the way through. He gets the second, but then they leave him there, and then in the top of the 6th, Wisely's at second. Patrick Bailey gets a little unlucky in that he hits enough of the baseball to where it makes Jake McCarthy dive, makes the catch, makes a really good play, and Wisely tags up, goes to third, but the Giants cannot get him in. But McCarthy's diving catch saves a run. Giants could have tied the game there, but they did not. Top of the 7th, Nelson is still in the game. Elliot Ramos, who he's hitting everything really hard. Sometimes it's right at like the second baseman, like he did, I believe, is in the top of the 9th, or no, maybe it's the top of the 8th. But he hits a bomb, and when he hit it, it's out into center field. It's very similar to eventually to Pavin Smith's game-winning pinch hit home run. but this thing just carries and carries and carries. And at first I was like, it's getting to the track and they're going to catch it. Nope. It just keeps going and going and going. It's a home run. And he ties the game. You had a stat earlier today that I want to read about Ramos. You sent it to our chat. You said something I would have never have guessed while looking at their OPS. Ramos has a .795. Now, this is before the game started. It's .795 OPS, while Matos has a .574 OPS. Matos has only struck out 10 times, while Ramos has struck out 32 times in nearly the same amount of ABs. And so if you were to kind of just lay those strikeout numbers without knowing the on base, you would think, Ramos probably is getting on base a little bit more, but Matos is getting on base a little bit more. But that is actually not the case. Even though Ramos is striking out, he is still getting on base more. He's hitting the ball harder. And that kind of made me wonder, and I was going to bring this up a little bit later, but might as well talk about it now. With Conforto back, at least against right-handers, it looks like Matos is the one who's going to get crunched out of the lineup. And they put Yaz in center field today. Conforto was in left, and Ramos was in right.
Yeah, I 2 weeks ago, you don't expect that that's going to happen, but over the past 2 weeks, Matos has unfortunately been ice cold. He's hitting the ball. He's not striking out like I showed you, but he's hitting the ball, but it's weak contact.
Yeah, he's not making fantastic contact.
No, and Ramos is striking out. Ramos is doing the 2024 Major League Baseball thing. He's striking out, but he's hitting the ball hard. And that's what GMs want. That's what managers want in their lineup. So he's going to stick. He's going to stick around. I was also looking at the StatCast numbers because we love StatCast. It's so fun. It's a deep dive into just weird stuff, and it's so fun. But of the regulars, Matt Chapman leads the Giants with barrels per plate appearance percentage at 8. Right behind him is Elliot Ramos at 7.5. He's second on the team of the regulars. And Matos is all the way down at 17th, behind guys like Wilmer Flores and Mike Yastrzemski and Tom Murphy and Blake Sable. So yeah, he's really, really unfortunately dropped off. And if you look at 95 mile an hour and over hits, Elliot Ramos and Luis Matos are still kind of hanging around there. They both have, or not hits, but 95 mile an hour plus off the bat, which is considered a hard hit. And they're both kind of sticking around each other with 29. Matos has 29. Ramos has 28. But still, that barrels per plate appearance percentage is huge for Elliot Ramos. And that's what's going to keep him sticking in the majors. So now, here's the question. So now Conforto's back, right? And then you've got Ramos, right-hander. And then when Slater comes back, what do you do at that point? I guess Fitzgerald probably goes down, right? Matos goes down. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. There's going to be a lot of lineup play, a lot of roster play going forward, I think. But I think Matos needs those regular at-bats in AAA. Now remember, AAA in Sacramento, the Giants don't have a lot of outfielders. They don't have a lot of prospective outfielders at this point who are going to come up and do something. Hunter Bishop, I mean, he's hitting 290, and this is coming off of all these injuries and all of these high hopes as a first rounder. Does he come up to the majors? I don't think so. I don't think he has enough growth in the minors, enough at bats in the minors. I think he's in AAA as a body necessity at this point. So really, you've got to have Matos down there just to get those ABs, stay fresh, continue to hone his skills, hit the ball hard. Look, if he ends up being, kind of Jung-Hoo Lee light, where he can run into one now and then, but he can control the strike zone and have some balls fall into play. I mean, his BABIP is what, 225? which again, you understand BABIP way more than I do. I look at those numbers and I go, I just look at BABIP at 225 and go, that's bad, right?
Yeah, I think the way a lot of people, and they may look at it in combination of barrel rates like you're doing, and the numbers of miles per hour off the bat. But generally, when you see a super high BABIP, you sort of think like, okay, it's going to come down a little bit. Right. It's going to come down to normal. And when you have a super low BABIP, if they're making solid contact, then you go, okay, it's probably going to come up at some point, which is how I think most people look at that number. But you mentioned Bishop. Andrew, I think it was Andrew Baggerly interviewed Kyle Haynes, the farm director or minor league director, whatever his title is. And he asked him about Bishop, and he was not too keen on Bishop joining the big club this year.
That would be a jump. That would be a jump.
And I don't think it was like, he doesn't have the talent. I think it was like he just doesn't have the repetitions. He's been hurt before. He kind of gets this start and stop, and he's been, a little bit disappointing. He would probably say that as far as his output. And so, let him get some success underneath his belt, and then, think about him for late this year or next year. And I think that's fine because you're still making the decision on Ramos. You're still making that decision on Matos. So you're just going to bring in another right-handed outfielder and go, okay, let's just let's throw this guy in the mix as well. You got to really figure out that.
And he's not on the 40-man. So, I mean, there would have to be a lot of moving parts. You look at your 40-man outfield, right? Wade Meckler's on it. So he's going to come for anybody else.
He's hurt, right? Didn't he hurt his wrist or something?
Oh, that's right. Yes, he's been out for a little bit too. So there, I mean, there's a lot of things that they would have to do. They'd have to do some moving around, and that's pretty much why we see Tyler Fitzgerald up.
Yeah.
Because he can play outfield. Man, I'm looking at the 40-man roster right now, and the Giants are basically one more outfield injury away from this being a complete disaster when you look at the outfield. So, the lineup that we fielded yesterday, Sunday's game, was rough. But then they went on and scored some runs.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like it's kind of weird, but I feel like this Giants team is definitely a day game team. Yeah. Do you get that feeling? I mean, I feel like anytime this team plays a day game, there's a little bit more energy. There's fire. There's something happening. Then you play a night game. Let's, take tonight out of it because tonight was a travel day. They had to get out of San Francisco down to Arizona last night. You only have a 1 hour time change, so it's not that big of a deal, but still you're playing on the road. You're not in your own bed in your own ballpark and everything else. But I kind of feel like this team has some more energy in day games.
But I mean, it's funny that you say that. I remember when I'm a little kid, Inside Sports was a great magazine.
Yeah.
And someone wrote a satirical column on Fred Lynn. So this has got to be late 80s. You remember Freddie Lynn.
Oh, yes.
And so Fred Lynn is in the twilight of his career. And the writer is like making fun of Fred Lynn, saying like, here are all the excuses that Fred Lynn has for not producing anymore.
Oh, no.
It's like, it's a day game after a night game is one of them. And then a night game after a day game was like the next one. And so like when you said that, it just made me remember this column that I read, 40 years ago when I was a little kid. But if they are a day team, look, you're not playing that many day games. You better figure out how to be a night team.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the key. So tonight, absolutely rough way to start the road trip. Randy Rodriguez, we have high hopes for Randy Rodriguez, and we thought, here he is. We get to see him in a high leverage situation, which is what we've been wanting. We've seen the progression. We've seen the grooming of getting him ready to be that guy. And just, hung a couple of pitches and made it pretty easy for the Diamondbacks to walk this one off. But that's not going to be the end of him. I mean, he's gonna stick around. He's gonna keep throwing hard, and he's gonna get more high leverage situations. You don't learn how to be a pitcher in the major leagues by just having success all the time. You learn by failure. Pretty much anything in life, really. Here's a life lesson: when you fail, you become better. You learn that's the way it is. And that's why I was so excited to hopefully see Doval come in tonight. And my phone keeps staring at me with the update from Major League Baseball saying that Chapman scored in the top of the ninth. I gotta wipe that off of there, man, because we had the chance to possibly see Doval, and then we possibly see a different outcome, a different ball game. So
yeah, let me finish the scoring. So bottom of the ninth, we kind of mentioned this already, but I'll just finish it off. Randy Rodriguez is in. I'm trying to figure out great nicknames for him. Trying to mimic the Dirty Sanchez nickname that we gave Jonathan Sanchez, 20
Sanchez,
15 years
Sanchez,
ago.
Yeah.
And then double and Jack to walk it off. And, Randy Rodriguez is a guy, I think I jinxed him because I was thinking, in my brain, I was like, if you had the K-Rod to the Percival, like what an amazing 8th and 9th inning. And I'm looking at Randy Rodriguez just going like, okay, what if he's the K-Rod? And, he's young. He hasn't really pitched that much above a AA. So, it's just, I see that live arm and I see, 98 miles an hour. And Mike Krukow mentioned right before the Jack, actually, it might have been during the McCarthy at bat, how Patrick Bailey, he was on the outside corner and both pitches were actually on the inside. So maybe the command wasn't fantastic for Randy Rodriguez tonight. So Diamondbacks win 4-2. They take the first game in the series. If we look at the standings, as the standings are on Monday night, the Dodgers in the West, 38-23. They're probably underperforming as good as that record is. The Padres have snuck above the Giants, 32-31. They are 1.5 games in front in the wild card. And the Giants are 29-32. They're a half game back of the wild card. Arizona Diamondbacks, 28-32, a full game back in the wild card. So I have a feeling Padres, Giants, Diamondbacks, unless there are more injuries coming, all three of those teams are going to be in this mix for one or possibly two of these wild card spots in the National League. So we're going to be sick of these guys because we're going to be watching their box scores.
Sick. Oh, man.
We're going to be watching their box scores. We're going to watch the Padres box scores. So that's going to be what the season is going to be about. But before we're done with this, we wanted to give the player of the game from the Giants perspective. I mean, if you're the player of the game from the Diamondbacks perspective, it's Pavin Smith more than likely for winning the game with the Jack. But from the Giants perspective, who was your player of the game?
I've got to go. And again, if it was a win, I might have said Sean Jelly, because I'm really enjoying this part of the season that he's in. How well he's been pitching. He has a 2.55 ERA. He's never finished. He's only played in 2 seasons with the Giants, but he's never had an ERA at the end of the season under 5.76. So this resurgent by Jelly is just fantastic, but they didn't pull it off, so I can't give it to him.
Mm-hmm.
I got to give it to Elliot Ramos. A home run, a single. He only faced 12 pitches in 4 at bats, and that was kind of the Giants' game plan today. You could tell by about the 4th or 5th inning, you're like, okay, they're just attacking first pitch, and then it got even more noticeable as the game went on, because I think they had a couple of innings where I think a span of like 5 or 6 at bats where 4 of them were first pitch swinging into outs. Unfortunately, I think there was a single mixed in there by No, I can't remember. It might have been Brett Wisely. But yeah, I got to go with Elliot Ramos. He is just tearing it up. We've talked about him a lot tonight, but again, just seeing him and he had a couple of nice plays, tracking down some balls in right
Some
field.
lasers that were
I
hit
saw
at
some
him.
line drives. Jock Peterson hit one that I thought, my God, that's in the gap, but he tracked it down and got there. So
That
his
was my
defense,
favorite part of the game, actually, not letting Jock
yeah,
Peterson even get a hit, just
yeah,
keeping
but
him off the base.
of course they zeroed in on him on the celebration because Jock Peterson and his games in the clubhouse. What was that game called?
Yeah, that poker game or whatever. I think they said it was like a Filipino card game.
Yeah.
Mine is, you know who I'm going to give it to? 'Cause, you know, I don't want to say the same person as you. I think there are two people. Like, I really loved some of Brett Wisely's at bats, even the at bat. I think it was in the 9th inning where he grounded back to the pitcher. Might have been the 8th inning. He hit that ball really hard, and the pitcher just
he
made a really good play. But he's turning on pitches. He is not the player thinking, but I am enjoying this version of Brett Wisely. Like you were calling for Brett Wisely as a possible player who's going to help this team. You know, I think even back 2 years ago, you were talking about him. So it's really cool to see him grow and play really well. And, you know, he's making a case for himself to stay on this roster, this, this big league roster here. I'm going to go with Spencer Howard. Now, I understand he gave up those 2 runs in the 2nd inning, but they really needed him to go long in this game and to then hand it off to Jelly, who was also awesome, who then handed it off to Tyler Rogers. And we got to see good Tyler Rogers today instead of bad Tyler Rogers. I thought that was, if they actually win this ball game, Spencer Howard is kind of like a little bit of a savior for bouncing back and pitching as well as he did. But, you know, in a loss, that probably is a little bit overlooked. But what I hope is that he sees that performance of being able to kind of buckle down after giving up some early runs and staying in that ball game. And, you know, hopefully that is something that is beneficial to him because they're going to need him. They're going to need guys like him. You know, we were talking about this in the preseason before spring or, you know, during spring training of like this dream of, gosh, Cobb is going to be back. We thought he was going to be back in like late April, early May, and that's been pushed out to June, and he is still not back. We were like, okay, Snell's going to be ready. Nope, Snell is now hurt again. Okay, what about Robbie Ray? Well, Robbie Ray might be the only one who's on target to come back, but he is also coming off a Tommy John. So we had this dream of this overabundance of starting pitching, and the reality is this is so piecemeal like it's been, and which is so frustrating because I hate watching openers because an opener to me is just deflating. I want to see Logan Webb go 8 innings. I want to see Kyle Harrison strike out 8 guys in 5 innings. I want to see Jordan Hicks, you know, pitch into the 6th and reach back for 99 because he needs it. But then when you see these openers, I just immediately feel deflated. And it's not because I just automatically think we're going to lose the game. It's just, man, this is going to be like torture trying to get through this thing and not overusing your bullpen. So I hope Howard, and watch, you know, somebody gets healthy and then he gets DFA'd. And I'm like, what? I just spoke.
But I don't think so because I don't think they don't have the trust that they did in Mason Black. You know, and they had Dalton Jeffries in their back pocket. I mean, we're kind of at the point where Spencer Howard is that guy now. Sean Jelly could probably open a ball game and get you 4 innings, 5 innings.
Or what about we put Sean Jelly in the starting rotation and see if he can get through 5?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, he could do it. He's kind of that specialist now, and he can go 2 innings. He can go, what did he go? 1 1/3 tonight. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you know, that's kind of the guy he's become. Can he be effective with his cutter and with his slider and everything if he went 4 or 5 innings? I don't know. I mean, we've seen that movie before, and it wasn't pretty. So I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. You know what we saw tonight though, or we didn't see, which is super rare in a Major League Baseball game. Nobody walked.
I was just about to say that as you were saying that.
There was one hit by pitch
mind.
and no walks, which I kept looking at my scorebook and I was going through it. And I'm like, I swear somebody walked at some point. I was like, no, that was a hit by a pitch. Yeah, nobody walked. Amazing. You don't see that anymore.
All right, so I guess we do have to mention the Blake Snell thing. So Blake Snell goes back on the disabled list. That is unfortunate because he was actually pitching well, and I guess it's a groin strain, and he had some. Was it abductor or adductor? I don't remember which one it was.
Adductor, ADUC, adductor. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I go to the gym, there's one machine where you open your legs, and there's another machine where you close them with the weight. So I don't know.
See, and I've got that issue too, and I've been going to PT for it for a year or so. But I'm also not a prime athlete, old man. So,
so the Giants will have to just continue to balance that out, and it's so frustrating because you want the team. Everybody wants to see what their team looks like full strength.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't happen, it's overly frustrating, but you also have to have the depth pieces and the bench pieces for those moments when no one's team is ever really full strength. The teams whose teams are full strength, they're probably the ones who, go into the playoffs, but the Giants haven't had that. I don't know if they are ever going to be full strength. I guess we would have to hope for Cobb and Robbie Ray later in the season for those guys to get healthy. And then maybe you're talking July, August, where, maybe we're worried about, 3 games in between, the couple of the wild card teams. And maybe that's when you go, okay, now we got the pitching, and that's what we're waiting for. So that outlook, I think is hopeful, but as we've seen today, when you're hopeful, sometimes the football gets pulled out of you like Lucy and Charlie Brown. But this is just what we do. We've been doing this ever since we started watching, and we're not going to be those fans who are just like, oh, I hate this team. I just wish this team would die. I did make a joke on Twitter the other day where after they lost the game to the Yankees, I said, can we just DFA the entire team? They make me so sad. But obviously that was a joke.
We hurt. We hurt.
We live and die with these guys.
Yeah.
So, all right. That is going to be it from here. We will be back doing some more live post-game recaps, reaction shows. But for now, for Brad, I am a Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.